Good morning, children. Today is lesson 12, plot point 9, home and dry. Here's today's presentation of your page with your thinking side, learning chunk 1, learning chunk 2 and learning chunk 3, and your writing side. Please can you make sure that you draw around a little circle, could be the end of a glue stick, to draw the JC symbols. I've noticed on a few pieces of work that have been put onto dojos that we're not actually doing that. And the reason why we do it is so we can look back and think, oh, yes, that's what a fronted adverbial is. That's what maybe a simile is. Oh, that's what repetition is. Then each learning chunk is divided into word bank 1 and word bank 2. Today's learning objective: to write effective sentences for our story. And steps to success for plot point 9, home and dry, are repetition for effect, dialogue and fronted adverbials. Plot point 9, home and dry. And on our narrative map, we're almost at the end, plot point 9, got one more lesson after today. So let's get started. You can see that we've got learning chunk 1, word bank 1. And today we're going to share these images of Dad opening the front door to the little boy who stood on the steps. And we're going to gather a bank of wet words, wet sounds that the little boy might be making. And I've come up with 3. Squelch, sniffle, splash. What I'd like you to do now is come up with 2 of your own, and once you've done that, you can then magpie or borrow the 3 that I've written. If you're struggling to come up with some words, use a thesaurus and look up splash or squelch. Pause the video now. Okay, so I've added some more here, and I've added splosh, drip, sob, trickle, plop. They're all sounds that when you're wet, you can hear. So what I'd like you to do now is add to your word bank 1, pause the video. Word bank 2, we're going to look at time adverbials. And I've picked 2, at last, finally. I'd like you to come up with 2 of your own, add them to your word bank 2, and include mine, at last and finally. Pause the video now. How did you get on? I've added a few more. I've put at long last, in the end, ultimately. So here's a chance now for you to look to see how many you've got. If you've got the same as what I've picked, tick them. If not, you can magpie and borrow some of the words I've got. Pause the video now. Okay, so we've got squelch, sniffle, splash, splosh, drip, sob, trickle, plop. Now, on our writing side, we're going to do repetition. And throughout the units we've been working on, we've done a series of 3 short sentences. So I'm going to look at my wet sounds, and I'm going to pick 3, and I'm going to start by writing them in short sentences. Sniffle by sniffle, squelch by squelch, splosh by splosh. So there we have 3 short sentences with our wet sounds in. My next sentence is going to start with one of my fronted adverbials, and I'm going to write, at last the boy was home. So your task now is to write 3 short sentences using wet sounds. Then choose for your next sentence a fronted adverbial, a time fronted adverbial, and finish the sentence. Pause the video now. Learning chunk 2. Now you can see from this picture that Dad has given him such a lovely big hug. He can see that he's very upset, very wet and very cold. So, what could Dad say? Word bank 1. Okay, let's see. He could be saying, there, you're home now. Come here, son. What do you think your dad or someone would say to you if you were wet and cold? You can add to word bank 1 now, borrow some of mine, pause the video now. I've added, let's get that wet coat on the radiator, because we'd have to dry it, wouldn't we? There, you're home now. Come here, son. Let's get that wet coat on the radiator. Can't wait to read some of the phrases that you're going to come up with. Pause the video now. Okay, so we've got our word bank 1 phrases of what Dad could say. Now we're going to have a look at some quiet, comforting synonyms for said. How is Dad going to say it? Now, he'd say it in a whispered voice, a soothed voice, a murmured voice. I want you to come up with 2 of your own, then magpie the 3 of mine. Pause the video now. I've added comforted. If you've picked any of the words that I've got, tick them. Pause the video now and make sure that you've got plenty of words in word bank 1 and word bank 2. Okay, so we've got our, what would Dad say? We've got comforting synonyms for said, and now we're going to look at adverbs for how Dad speaks. And he'd be speaking kindly, softly, tenderly. What I'd like you to do now is come up with some more words that Dad would show how Dad speaks. But don't forget, they're all going to be positive. And they're going to be kindly, softly, tenderly. And copy these 3, come up with 2 of your own. You may even come up with more than 2. Pause the video now. How did you get on? I've picked some more, and I've picked warmly, lovingly, gently, sympathetically. So we've got our word bank 1 and our word bank 2. Pause the video now and magpie as many of these words as you can so that your word bank 1 and word bank 2 are bursting at the seams with lots of word choices. And pause the video now. My sentence for learning chunk 2 is going to have some dialogue in it, and it's going to tell me how Dad speaks. So I've chosen from my what would Dad say word bank 1 side, come here, son. And notice I've put it into speech marks, inverted commas, because it's what Dad actually says. And then I've said, whispered Dad warmly. So he said, come here, son, whispered Dad warmly. What I'd like you to do now is come up with your sentence with dialogue in. Make sure you put in inverted commas. Pause the video now. Learning chunk 3. And you can see by this picture that Dad's getting all the wet clothes off him, and it looks like he's had a bath or a shower, and he's drying his hair. And what does that look like in the corner? It's a mug of hot chocolate. Okay, learning chunk 3. We're going to describe the warmth of the hairdryer spreading over the boy. Now, I know when it's really cold and you've got a hairdryer and you're trying to dry your hair, the heat that blows out from the hairdryer goes all over your shoulders and down your back and down your arms. So we're going to look at words to describe that. And I've picked enveloped, protected, comforted. What I'd like you to do now is come up with 2 of your own. You can use a thesaurus. You can ask anyone in the house, your parents, older brothers and sisters, to help you. And then magpie some of my words. Pause the video now. Okay, how did you get on? I've put swathed, swaddled, cocooned, insulated, safeguarded. So it's your chance now to magpie and borrow some of my words from Word Bank 1 and write them in your own Word Bank 1. So they're words to describe the warmth of the hairdryer spreading over the boy as his dad's drying his hair. Pause the video now. Okay, now on our writing side, I've wrote bathed, blow-dried and dressed. A feeling of warmth cocooned him. You can see I've picked the word cocooned, bathed, blow-dried and dressed. A feeling of warmth cocooned him. So really in that sentence, we're just changing the word cocooned. Pause the video now and complete your sentence. Okay, plot point 9, home and dry. Sniffle by sniffle, squelch by squelch, splosh by splosh. At last, the boy was home. Come here, son, whispered Dad warmly. Bathed, blow-dried and dressed. A feeling of warmth cocooned him. Now, what I'm going to say now is plot point 10 tomorrow is all about smells and tastes. Now, what I'd like you to do is maybe ask your mums or your dads or whoever's looking after you if you could have a cup of hot chocolate with some marshmallows. And what I want you to do is before you drink it, I want you to smell it. I want you to look at how it looks, how the chocolate, is it smooth, is it silky? What does it smell like? And then I want you to drink it. And when you drink it, I want you to wrap yourself up in a blanket just to see how cosy and warm you are. Okay. I will speak to you tomorrow. Have fun. Enjoy your hot chocolate.